YouTube. This video is something that isn't really beauty related or anything, or this video is something that I've wanted to make for a while, but I've never really had the time, plus never really had the chance to do it. Sorry about the lighting, my light has broke, so I'm gonna have to go with natural lighting. I'm gonna try and do that a bit. So, and if you're only barking, I have my dogs behind me. So 7 years ago, I was diagnosed with Crohn's disease, and this disease has affected me in many ways, but hasn't let it stop me for being me. And I wanted to do this video because I know that there are many people out there with the same condition, but just remember, everybody with this condition is different. I'm different, everyone's different, everyone's on different medications, treatments, how they live their lives. And I'm just going to tell you about how it started and what doctors think what happened. So I'm going to do a bit of a timeline if I can. So I was 11 years old before this happened, and before it all happened, there was a huge breakout of swine flu that came to the country. Many people were affected by it, many people got sick, and a few cases of death even. Now I was unfortunate to get swine flu, and I had it pretty bad. My whole family had it bad. We weren't allowed to leave the house until we were all better, and that was really difficult because we all went down one by one. I think me and my brother-in-law Danny had it the worst out of everyone. I'm not really sure. It was a few years ago. And then over the coming months, I was fine, but people said that I still didn't look well, if you get what I mean. Like, I was well, but I didn't look well. I'd always been a skinny child. Fair skin, I still do now, but obviously I have a bit more meat on me. People said I was a skinny child, and I had like a pot belly, that's what I'm going to call it. And it came 2 weeks before my birthday, and I went to the toilet in a sudden rush, and it didn't look normal. There was nothing wrong with me, I wasn't poorly, I just unfortunately got diarrhea. And over the past couple of days it carried on, but eventually it stopped, and I was like, why is this happening? And then it stopped, but then in August it came back with its vengeance. It basically carried on after August. So I was pretty poorly for ages, but I couldn't really feel any symptoms. The only symptoms I had was going to the toilet. That was it. There was no blood, there was no mucus, there was nothing. It was just basically a runny bum. That's what I'm going to call it. Over time, I'm going to say September, I think it was, I'm not really sure. People in my class noticed something that wasn't right with me, and they said, you look ill, you know. And back in them days, people said, if you eat a cheeseburger, you might put on a bit of weight. And I was like, really? That August we went away on holiday. I don't remember where we went, but usually even though I have fair skin, I catch a tan really quickly in other countries. And usually my tan will last all year round. And this time my tan didn't even last a couple of weeks, I think. I think over time my cat, sorry, I had to stop. My cat decided to attack things, no reason. I'm just open that curtain, hopefully the lighting is a little bit better. And that tan didn't last very long. It didn't even last a month, I don't think. And over time, I'd say about November-ish, one of the worst symptoms for me was I couldn't stand up for long periods of time without feeling sick. Now this is really weird for me. My mum got engaged in 2010, and then I think we went to wedding fairs in November. I think my sister was also engaged at that point, yeah. So I went to wedding fairs for both of our weddings, and I had to keep sitting down because I constantly felt sick I felt like I was going to be sick, and it was awful to have. And my mum kept saying to me, why do you keep sitting down? And I said, I don't know, I just feel sick. And people were like, well, that's weird. And that carried on for a long time. Now this is also another weird thing. Every Christmas I would be sick, vomiting. And that happened that year as well. I vomited. And this is a weird thing that happens. I was speaking to you a bit towards the end after I'd been diagnosed. And they said to me at Christmas, you know, I didn't look very well, I looked very pale. If I have any photos, I try and include them, but I wasn't looking that great. I looked skinnier. And by that time, me going to the toilet got a bit worse. I still went like normal times, like normal 2 or 3, but then mucus started appearing, a bit of blood. But obviously, again, I didn't say anything. Comes into the new year, my symptoms got very bad. I started constantly feeling sick a lot more. I had to keep having days off school because I was feeling so poorly. I was going to the toilet. I got out of breath so quickly. Say like I'd got up a flight of stairs, like one. By the time I got to the top, I was actually gasping for air. I was that tired and exhausted and feeling that ill. I couldn't even bike to school, walk to school. I felt that ill. I couldn't do it, and it got really bad. And we were like, what's going on? By that time, my mum had taken me to the doctors 3 times. Before then, my sister took me to the hospital back in September because they said I was going to the toilet a bit more, and they said it was classed as food poisoning, and apparently not everyone with food poisoning has symptoms, so that was a bit weird. And then my mum took me to doctors in 3 separate occasions. I don't remember the timeline of when my mum took me. The first time was she's got a cold, she's got flu, she's got a virus. That was like the first time. The second time was maybe she's not eating enough properly. Maybe she's got another virus. Maybe she's got some sort of infection, but we can't give her antibiotics for it. That was another one. And then the third one was, you know, there's nothing wrong with her. She's just a little bit underweight. Maybe she needs to start eating. Or, you know, another virus. That was each time my mum went to the doctors. None of them asked my mum what was in my family history. In my family history, we had bowel cancer, stomach cancer, irritable bowel disease, which is what I have, and irritable bowel syndrome. And obviously I didn't know that until obviously I got diagnosed. By that point, I was getting really poorly at that point. I was losing a lot of weight. Apparently, my mum could see my spine through my skin, which is kind of gross. And during February was really bad. During January and February month, part of that bit, this was a bit where I started vomiting a lot. I was vomiting on loads of occasions, most in the morning. I'd feel sick, I wouldn't eat because it made me feel sick, and then I would start actually being sick. I was losing so much weight from going to the toilet and being sick. Doctors wouldn't help me, hospital wouldn't help me. You know, we was literally stuck in a situation where we couldn't get out of because nobody was willing to help. And at that point, in the February half term, me and my sister, my brother-in-law, Tom, and Chloe, they took me into town, and I was really unwell that day. Took me to town. By that point, as a 12-year-old, I was so into making jewellery, little beads, and I went to the bead shop as much as I can with my dad, but this time my sister took me, and I couldn't concentrate in there because I felt so ill. I said, I want to go home. I want to go home. And my sister went, well, you can't go home because she wanted to be here. And it's like, yeah, but I really don't feel well. You know, I want to go home. So eventually my sister took me home. I didn't feel well at all. And then all of a sudden, in the middle of town, I collapsed and I was violently sick. People were watching me, as people do. They were watching me. They were like, oh my God. And only one person came up to me and asked me if I was alright. And it was really embarrassing, you know, you don't just collapse in town vomiting violently for no reason. It was just horrible. So apparently as soon as I was sick, I felt so weak. My brother-in-law literally had to carry me home because I was so weak after being sick. And I fell asleep as soon as I got home, and my sister said to me I look yellow. My sister rang my mum immediately. She came home from work, she looked at me, and my mum did this look where she's shocked, but she's making it out everything's okay, maybe not to scare me. But I look at her and she's like, you know, yeah, you're fine. And my mum had booked an emergency appointment for me the next day at the doctor's to see what was going on. This was the only doctor that asked my mum what is in my family medical wise, and if that happened earlier, I wouldn't have got so sick in the first place. I know not all doctors could do this, but this could really help thousands of people, because of this they thought I had something else instead of my Crohn's, and I'm going to explain. So I went to the doctor's the next day, weak as anything, feeling sick, so tired, and constantly cold as well. And he says to me, my mum or me, what's in your family? So my mum says, you know, we've had a history of bowel and stomach cancers. My nana has irritable bowel disease, so she has ulcerative colitis in her. My nana has ulcerative colitis. And then my mum, my uncle, and I'm not sure if my aunties do as well, they have IBS, which is irritable bowel syndrome. So it's not a disease, it's syndrome, and it works differently. I can't really explain it. So he says to me, I don't think you have cancer, but I think it's more towards the syndrome or the disease. But he says we want to do a blood test on you the next morning to see what's going on. The next day I went to the doctors, and this is my first blood test. I'm absolutely pooing myself, you know, terrified. And I cannot tell you, the minute the nurse took my blood out, I felt so weak after she took my blood. And within a few hours, I had a phone call from my doctor saying to me, you need to go to hospital because we think you have cancer. Now, when they took my bloods, they said I was missing my red blood cells, and they said they don't know where it is, and they thought it was being absorbed into my body, which is a sign of leukemia. So they said you need to go to hospital, and they're going to fix you, they're going to sort you out and see what's going on. Terrified as anything me, just a 12-year-old girl, absolutely bloody terrified. My whole family's terrified because they're not sure whether I actually had leukemia or not. You know, my dad was crying, everyone was really upset, shocked what's going on. We all got to the hospital, different timelines of each other, and the doctor checked me over. They asked me what my symptoms are, and I told them my symptoms were my dad's busy crying in the corner, not wondering what's going on with his daughter, my mum as well with her daughter, and it's just really scary what's going on. Anyway, they took my bloods and they said to me, yes, you are missing red blood cells, but doesn't mean that you have cancer. We need to know what's going on. So at that point, they asked me to do a wee and a poo sample. And the next day I did one, and they said to me, right, you don't have cancer, you don't have leukemia, but we need to send you to another hospital because this hospital was fairly new and they didn't have the facilities to help me. So what they did, sorry my stand's falling, was they sent me to a hospital in Sheffield, and they said they will really help you there. I got there and they said, within a few hours, he says to me, we need to do a camera session on you. So I basically had a biopsy done and I had cameras. So because I was a child, I got put to sleep. So within a matter of 3 days, I had to be flushed out properly, and that was a nightmare because I had a tube down my nose. I was constantly pooing myself. I couldn't talk because I was in that much pain because of the tube down my throat. That was a horrible experience for me to go through. And then they said once the camera's done, they can then figure out what to do next. So blood transfusions, medication. So within the next day, I had my cameras done. I was put to sleep. So they did a camera down my throat and one up my bottom. And that, obviously, I wouldn't know because I was asleep. And I did experience one last year, which I will tell you about. And I woke up from the operation and they said to me, "You have Crohn's disease." And they explained to me, so ulcerative colitis affects one intestine and Crohn's disease affects stomach and the other intestine. Please do not hate me for this because I forget sometimes. Even though I've had this for nearly 7 years, I forget. Sorry. So after a couple of days, they did blood transfusions on me. They put a lot of blood in me. They gave me steroids. They not only did I have Crohn's disease, but they told me I was malnourished, I was anemic, I had no vitamins. So the way they explained Crohn's to me without it treated, they said basically every time you eat something or that, the body's basically sucking in everything to keep your body going, your nutrients, your iron, everything to keep your body going. And that was what they were doing, and that's why I was losing so much weight, because they were working that fast to make sure that my body was still going while I was so ill and while I was so skinny. I was off school for 3 months, 3 whole months, and I was out of hospital for about 4 or 5 days, I'm not sure, maybe 9 days I think I was, and I was on medication. So I was on one medication to keep my potassium up, which eventually stopped him. It was nasty. I was on medication that I couldn't have milk for an hour, which was horrible because I love milk and anything with milk, cheese, everything. Another one was steroids, so that was to make me hungry and to build up my weight. I was on multivitamin juices to help my vitamins go up and obviously boost my energy. I was on quite a lot of pills, and I think I was on iron tablets as well, I'm not sure. Also with Crohn's, it stopped my puberty and it stopped me growing, so I was really small for ages, and they said because of this it stopped my puberty. So my puberty didn't start until I was about 13 when my pills were working. 9 days after I was sent home from hospital, I had to go back in because I had suffered a relapse. My medication stopped working. They said to me, I had to go straight back and said, "I'm sorry, but we're going to have to keep you in to see what's going on." I had another lot of blood transfusion because I was losing a lot of blood. I was going to the toilet a lot. So I would be laid in bed, and the next minute I'd have a really painful cramp, and then I'd have to go to the toilet to poo. And that would happen a lot. The steroids were no longer working. Nothing was working, and doctors were like, "What are we going to do?" So they put me on 2 really strong drugs. The first one they put me on, these 2 medications I was on, they had a lot. They are called immune suppressant medications. So they have a couple ingredients that you have in chemotherapy which suppress your immune system. So I have a really bad immune system. I can catch a lot of things, and I have done since I've been on these medications. I'm now only on one of them. I'll tell you why. So the first one I was on is tablet form. I was on that a couple of days and they said, "It's not working, what are we going to do?" And then they put me on an intravenous. So basically I had this one through a drip, and I had to have only a few sessions of this because it's so powerful. I was on this one for about 9 sessions. I'm not 100% sure. It would seriously tire me out. I'd be so tired after having this. And it worked straight away. And then all of a sudden someone decided to text me. How rude. And then what happened was then all of a sudden my medication started to work. So I was on iron tablets. I was on everything, including these 2 really strong drugs. And after that, you know, one thing I've realised since I've been on this medication, my tans, whenever I go on holiday, it takes me longer for me to tan. Plus, my tans don't last that long anymore because basically of my medications. Also, my hair is a massive thing as well. Even though my hair may look healthy, it becomes really dry and very breakable very easily, and that's another thing due to my medication. So, after a year of being, you know, not I wouldn't say Crohn's free, I would say I've been well for a good year. My sister got married in that time, and then it came to my cousin's wedding. So my cousin got married in October in 2012. So that was a good year that I had. I put on a lot of weight, a healthy weight. I wouldn't say a lot, but I put on a healthy weight. I was happy, and everyone was seeing a good improvement of me. When I went back to school as well, all my friends were really happy to see me because they thought, unfortunately, people made nasty rumours about me. I was dying, I was anorexic, I was cancer, I was dying, I was dead. And I was allowed to eat in my lessons because of the steroids, because they made me so hungry. And it made me addicted to lasagna for some reason. And I still love lasagna to this day. I'm just not addicted to it as I was. By that night of my cousin's wedding, I was a bridesmaid. I stood up and I had a really painful cramp in my stomach. And I rushed to the toilet. And it was just so weird how sudden it happened. I went to the toilet and I was in a lot of pain. I danced on the dance floor, but I was struggling because I was literally trying to hold everything in to make sure I didn't poo myself. It was just a not nice experience to go through. And yeah, that happened. A couple of days later, I said to my mum, I don't feel well, something's not right. Mum went, you'll be fine. I really wasn't fine. I really wasn't fine. I then became really ill again. I struggled in school. I didn't go to school. I had 3 days off, then I'd go back to school, and then I'd have to have it again because it would just keep happening. Blood was happening to me because I said, Mum, I'm not well, something isn't right. Then we had a specialist appointment a week later, so we waited a week to see what would happen. We went and they said, you are having a relapse again. We will need to have cameras again, see what's going on. And I thought, oh my god, not another camera. So I was quite scared of this camera because I had an operation back in October. So I had an operation back in October to have 2 teeth taken out because they came out wrong. So because I did it through a mask and not through an intravene, I proper panicked and I thought I was going to die. So that was why I was so scared of my operation. So they had the cameras again. I woke up. So my cameras was meant to be the day the world was meant to end, the 21st of December, I think it was. So yeah, that was a lot of fun. You know, possibly the world could end and I'm having a camera shoved up my ass. You know, the norms. I woke up and they told me that my medication had stopped working. So my pill one had stopped working. I was no longer on the intravenous one. I wasn't on that for a year. And my other one stopped working. So what they did, they put me on another medication to stop that medication, bring out the bad stuff and work it for its reasons and not to make me ill, which has worked. I was back on steroids. One of the things I hated on steroids was I had a hamster face and I got bullied a lot because of it. Unfortunately, having a hamster face isn't fun. I got picked on a lot and it made me very self-conscious, and it still does now. Even though my face looks alright, if someone says I have a fat face, it's gonna really affect me. And I also did put on a bit of weight as well. So I had to buy clothes for bigger me, and then when I went off the steroids, I then had to go back into my size 8 clothes, which I am no longer a size 8. I then was off for the Christmas period, and then I went back to school happy and healthy. everything was working and I was fine. And I hadn't had a relapse for 4 years. And that was really good. Same medication, took it every single day. Yeah, there is a day why I'm going to forget to take it. And that's happened before. So, in July, for my 18th birthday, this isn't a relapse, but this affected me. So, I had a really bad cold, I had a really bad sickness bug, and it affected me going to the toilet. So, I was very constipated. I hadn't been to the toilet in weeks. Only time I'd actually made myself go to the toilet was if I took laxatives, which obviously I took once, and at one point I thought I pooed myself in college and it was so embarrassing, but luckily I didn't poo myself. It was just that happened, and my doctor said to me, I went in and I was scared, because whenever you relapse you are really scared of what happens to you. And what happened was, they said to me after my cold or flu, whatever I had, it affected my toilet needs, so they put me on tablets to get that back going to its normal self. Luckily, it went back to normal. I did forget something. So the doctors mentioned to me my swine flu may be the reason why I have Crohn's disease. They said it might have triggered it to happen. And they said, obviously, when I got overexcited, and so that would trigger me to be sick. So if you remember me saying every Christmas I was throwing up, that is the reason why. 6 months after I was diagnosed, my sister was also diagnosed with Crohn's disease, which, even though I have it severe, she's a lot poorlier than me. I'm okay, my tablets are working. She's okay at the minute, but there can be huge downfalls to where she feels really ill. So, since I've had Crohn's, I've had no inner chest infections, I've had asthma, I've had bronchitis, I've had so many chest infections, colds. I'm on yearly flu jabs, thanks to my thing. So every year I have a flu jab. Even though it won't protect me from every single flu, it will protect me from the really bad ones. I'm also vaccinated against adult meningitis and other things as well, because obviously my immune system is that crap. I catch everything. Crohn's also affects my bones as well. At first I was diagnosed with osteoporosis, but now I'm diagnosed with something else, but I can't remember what it's called. So what happens is I have fragile bones, they can break easily, so I'm on calcium tablets to help bring that up. I'm on multivitamins to keep my vitamins up. I'm on iron tablets to keep my iron up. I'm on everything on this planet. So yeah, and also my tablets, like I mentioned before, it affects my hair. Even though my hair looks really nice and healthy, my hair will become dry quickly. And also another fact I learned is if you're poorly, you should always look at your hair for some reason, which I thought was really cool. So yeah, in 2012 when I had my operation done, they said to me that I had indeterminate colitis. So that means my basically I was affected everywhere. My intestines, my stomach, my bowels, they were all infected with ulcers, and they couldn't work out whether I had more Crohn's or colitis. So that's why I'm diagnosed indeterminate, because they can't decide which one I have more. I have more Crohn's, but they can't determine which one I exactly have. Also, another thing is if I get really ill, I get really painful blister ulcers in my mouth, which I had before I was diagnosed, which I forgot to mention. So whenever I ate something, it burnt my mouth and it would be so painful. So 2017 was a really difficult year for me. So I hadn't relapsed in 4 years. 4 years. Now, in March, it came up to my 6th anniversary of me with my Crohn's, and one day, on my day off at work, I was watching telly with my mum, and I was like, oh, I need to go to the toilet. I also had this rush to go to the toilet. I thought, I need to go. I went to the toilet, and then within 20 minutes, I needed to go again. I said, Mum, I need to go again. And at first, I make jokes. If I have a bad stomach, I go, Mum, you know, it's the food I ate, or Mum's cooking, as a joke, obviously. And the next day, as soon as I woke up, I needed to go to the toilet. It was like a huge cramp, like I mentioned before, it's a cramp, and then you need to go to the toilet, otherwise you're going to shit yourself. So that happened, and I was going to the toilet at least 18 times a day. 18. And I thought, this is not normal. By that point, I was at another hospital. So in Sheffield, in that hospital, the minute I turned 16, I was classed as a full-grown adult. So I needed to go to another hospital. So I've gone to the one a lot more closer to home that is very specialised in Crohn's, colitis, everything. And yes, I had to start all over again, but it's what happens when you go to an adult hospital. I rang my IBD nurse and I said to them, look, I don't know what's going on. I'm going to the toilet 18 times a day. I'm in a lot of pain. There's blood, there's mucus, everything. I was at the hospital on the Friday, so from the Monday it happened to the Friday, it was really quick. I then had to have a sick note from work because I didn't know what was going on and I wasn't going to go to work. Plus, I worked in an old people's home back then, so I wasn't going to risk giving them something if it was an infection or a virus. The doctor looks at me and he goes, I think you have a virus, so wait till the weekend. If it hasn't stopped or slowed down, then obviously we need to have a camera. This is the first camera I've had drugged but awake. So I was under local anaesthetic, which was horrible. So by the weekend, it still hadn't got better. I was still poorly. In fact, my toileting got worse. I was going 22 times a day, and I even wrote down on a piece of paper how many times I went. And then I rang my IBD nurse over the week on Monday and said, look, things are still not better. I'm still going to the toilet. And they said to me, okay, so we need to get you in for a camera. So this camera is different what I had. Basically, this camera isn't the one that goes all through your colon and everything else. This one basically, where your bum hole is, or your anus, they literally had a camera just at the entrance and then beginning of one of the intestines. I'm not sure which one. Sorry, my body thing is rubbish. So they reached about a certain length and it would only last 5 minutes, the operation. I was off work for a whole month. But this is so weird that happened to me. A few days before my operation, I call it an op because it's easier. Before my op, my symptoms had slowed down, and this was so weird how this happened. They slowed down. I was going to the toilet less and less and less. There was less needing for me to go. And then I rang them the day before and said, I know I'm still probably going to have the camera, but I'm just letting you know my symptoms have subsided. I'm not going to the toilet as much anymore. And then I explained it to my doctor the day I had my op, and they said to me, okay, but we still need to have a look. After that, I was on steroids I was meant to be on them for 8 weeks, but I was only on them for a week because I was allergic to the steroids they gave me, and my neck swelled up, my neck blistered, my face blistered. I was on treatment for about 2 weeks to bring down the swelling and everything else. So I had to stop that after a week. I was off work for a month, and then when I went back to work, it was hard for me to go back to work at first because I was so out. I was so knackered. The steroids, I put on a bit of weight. I couldn't fit in my work clothes. Eventually I lost that weight, and then I realised that the care home was putting a lot of strain on my body because I was working with dementia, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's. I was dealing with a lot of things at work. Plus, by the time I came home, I would be shattered. And that's another thing with Crohn's, you know. Since then, I've been healthy. I've had not any relapses. Touch wood. I am okay. Everything is going well in my life. I have a new job. I've had it for about 4 months now, and I'm happy. Everything is okay. One thing I want to say, anyone who has Crohn's, you are not on your own. You may feel like it at first, but if you go to CICRA, Crohn's and Colitis UK, they have so many ways to help you deal with this situation. I don't class myself as a sufferer. I say I'm living with this disease, and I will be doing for the rest of my life. I don't know whether it's going to affect me fertility wise. I don't know if it's going to affect me anyway. I don't know if I'm going to need a bag in the future, because you don't know until it happens. I've lost so many people in my life, and I've learned to deal with that. Not all because of my Crohn's, but other reasons too. It's made me a stronger person. One thing that has hit me is when I had my relapse back in March, my confidence went downhill. And that is another thing I'm starting to bring back as well. Even though I look confident, I'm not. Just Crohn's has affected me in so many ways, and I'm not going to let that get the best of me in my life. My family is supportive. I'm learning to drive if I ever pass my theory. My family are so supportive. Sadie is going to bark. My family are very supportive. They're there for me if something goes wrong, especially my sister, because she also has a condition. It is so... You can have really good days and really bad days with Crohn's, and just because my symptoms are like that doesn't mean everyone else's symptoms are like mine. Everyone's different with Crohn's. Like I mentioned in the beginning, everyone is different with Crohn's. Everyone's different with the treatments, etc. Some people lose their hair with their treatments, some people don't. Some people have to have the bag, some people don't. It's just the way it is. I'm going to try and link down below the helplines if needed. But until then, you know, if you need it or you feel like you're on your own. I thought my dog was going to bark then. They're there for you. I find it so helpful. You can also have pen pals, which I have a couple that I'm talking to, which has been really helpful for me. So that's one. Also another thing is, you know, just talk to someone. Even one thing that has been difficult for me is disabled toilets. Now, in some doctors' cases, Crohn's is classed as a disability. I'm not going to get into that. I will only go into disabled toilet if I have to and no one else is there. If I feel like I'm going to poo myself, I'm going to go into disabled toilet. And every single time I have had an old woman shaming me because I used it. And I'm sorry for people out there, but just because you're old doesn't mean you have the right to use a disabled toilet unless you are actually disabled. Another thing as well, just because we look okay doesn't mean that we are. That's something other people have not understood me as well. Just because I look alright does not mean I am. I can look perfectly normal and I can be in so much pain, agony because of this condition. So I'm just going to say this, I really hope you listen to this video, and anyone who out there who may think they have Crohn's, please go to the doctors or hospital. Literally, it may be that, it may be something else. But just remember, if you have someone there who's support you, bring them with you. Because nobody wants to go through experiences like this on their own. Crohn's changed me as a person. And I'm not going to get into that. It's changed me as a person. It's made me understand a lot more things. And it's made me a lot more... I don't know. I want to do things better in life. And that is just one of the things. So, without any further ado, I really hope you enjoy this video, and yeah, I will be doing another review soon on a beauty product, but until then, I shall see you soon.